This is Jed and Kirby.
Kirby, let's go outside and play fetch.
How about catch? Fetch is so unsanitary.
On second thought, I don't want to go outside.
I guess you could say they're the first OCs I ever created. I briefly mentioned Jed and Kirby in my software video, but in case you missed it, this was a comic I came up with when I was like 10.
Kirby, I'm back from the store.
Did you get me any toys?
No, dog toys are too expensive these days.
What's this?
New socks. Put it back. It's not a toy.
The premise of the comic, the never been done before, totally original and unique premise, is the hilarious antics of one Jed and his oddly human-like talking beagle, Kirby. That's why my channel's named Kirbs, is because of Kirby. Not the little pink Nintendo round guy, but the dog. Occasionally there's a cat named Miggins. I'm pretty sure I got that name from Phineas and Ferb.
Isn't that right, Mr. Miggins?
And now my cat's named Miggins, so these characters have been following me around my entire life. And there were other recurring characters, like this clown. He was in one comic.
Can I get your autograph?
Sometimes the comics didn't make sense.
I'm so bored, and there's nothing on TV. I mean, wait a minute. I wonder what this button that says power does. Maybe it'll finally entertain me. I give up.
That's supposed to be an onomatopoeia of a TV turning off. Nobody got it though. I had to explain the joke to everyone. I still have all 74 comic strips and every other piece of Jed and Kirby art I ever created. Right here in this box. There's a lot. I think coming up with Jed and Kirby was how I figured out I wanted to pursue art seriously. Seeing all the comic strips in the newspaper, I was like, wait, is drawing comics like someone's job? And then my immediate next thought was, what if it was my job? When I first decided I wanted to draw comics for the newspaper, I waited for no one. I had a career to get started. I remember emailing tons of newspapers, sending them my scanned Jed and Kirby comics, being like, hi, I'm Tristan, and I'm 10. You should publish my comic. Most people ghosted me. Except for one. One of the papers was like, so cute. Yeah, we'll print that. So I did an interview with a journalist over email, and they did a whole story on me and published the article along with my first comic on the front page. Or, well, it was inside the front page. And this was a weekly newspaper, so I had a steady job, and I was definitely going to be a household name in no time. So the next week rolls by and I submit my next comic for publication, and the issue gets sent out. Literally 1 week later, the newspaper went out of business. Yeah, the newspaper got canned, along with Jed and Kirby. And I was pretty sad about it. I mean, it makes sense. Who was reading the newspaper? Nobody. This is when people started getting their news on their phones. No more newspapers. Except there was this other local paper that popped up soon after the newspaper shut down. It was this little indie publication that came out monthly. So I sent them Jed and Kirby, and they were happy to print it. And they even invited me and my family to this nice fancy dinner with all the other writers and journalists for the paper. And I was definitely the youngest one there. I was like, you know, obviously, I was like 11. But yeah, I kept doing the comic strips for them every month for like 4 years. I eventually got bored of it, but, you know, that's okay. Miggins. No. Stop scratching my PC. But whether or not Jed and Kirby was being shared with the world at the time, nothing stopped me from drawing the comic strips and coming up with jokes and new characters. And as many artists do with their characters, Jed and Kirby went through a redesign partway through the series. And recently I was thinking, now that my art style is like more refined and better, and it's been like over 10 years since I last drew them, what would it look like if I updated their designs again and maybe drew another comic for old time's sake? We'll start with Jed. But before we dive straight into my character design process, you might be wondering how you can learn to design or redesign your own original characters. I'd like to recommend Skillshare, the sponsor of this video. Skillshare is the best place to learn a creative skill or pick up a new hobby. If you're looking to reconnect with your creativity and maybe avoid brain rot, Skillshare is where humans come to learn from other humans. I took a class from the renowned illustrator and comic artist, Gabriel Piccolo, called Character Illustration, Drawing Faces, Figures, and Clothing. I've always been a big fan of Gabriel's comic style art and his graphic novels, so when I saw he had a class on Skillshare, I had to check it out. And in just 1 hour, he goes over so many useful tips on character design, drawing expressions, clothing, and his own process on taking a sketch to a final colored piece. I feel like I learned a lot of things I can apply to my own process, and I'm definitely going to be revisiting his class in the future. The first 500 people to use my link in the description or scan the QR code will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Now back to the video.
Why did I have to be born with this stupid clown nose? At least I haven't heard anybody make fun of it.
Jed is, you could say he's a goofy guy. That's actually straight from my interview with the journalist. What else does this say? Let's see. He sometimes just wants peace and quiet away from his energetic dog, but most of the time he wants to play with his dog all day long because he thinks he's the cutest puppy on earth. Okay, we're done. I think that gives us a pretty good idea of where we need to start. But before we're gonna start drawing, it's always a good idea to write a little bit about your character. This is a tip I gave in the character design video, if you saw that. And this doesn't have to be like a whole document about his lore and his backstory and all his hobbies and interests. I'm just gonna write down a few things that I know. It can be anything like physical traits, personality traits, just write some stuff that you know just to help you get in the mindset of the character. And I think that since the format of this is just a simple comic strip for gags, I feel like it's okay if Jed isn't the most three-dimensional character, you know? Maybe he gets more fleshed out as the comic goes on. And now it's time to get drawing. So I'm gonna put all the stuff I wrote on the side as well as the OG design, just to make sure I'm staying true to the original character, and I'm gonna make sure I knock out all those physical traits. I didn't want to straight up give him like this big oval nose like in the original design, but I did make sure to give him a big nose. I feel like Jed is kind of a homebody. I mean, a lot of the comic strip takes place at Jed's house, and you know, if we're staying true to my interview, he wishes for peace and quiet at times. And so I figured Jed probably prioritizes comfort, and I'm gonna have that reflect in his outfit. So for his blue hoodie, I made it kind of oversized and baggy, especially in the sleeves. And instead of just like normal blue jeans, I figured Jed would probably go for some loose-fitting linen pants. So Jed is a goofy guy, and I was wondering like how to show that, and I figured Jed is definitely someone who knows how to juggle. So I drew this little pose of him juggling Kirby's tennis balls. It is actually canon in the original story that Jed's job is to advertise hot dogs on a street corner in a ridiculous costume. So I feel like Jed is a performer. He can perform when he needs to, at least. You know, maybe he went to clown school. Did you know that's a thing? Clown school? I just learned about this week. Like, clown school is a thing. I bet Jed totally went to clown school. Jed also just kind of looks goofy, so I think we're good on that. The last thing I was trying to figure out was how do I show that Jed likes to play with Kirby? And then I thought, maybe he's covered in dog hair. Anyone who has a dog that sheds a lot, you know that when you want to play with them, like you're gonna get dog hair everywhere. You just have to accept the fact that all your clothes are gonna be covered in dog hair. I think that kind of sells the idea. And there's Jed. What do you guys think? I'm pretty happy with how this turned out, actually. I think his design is more appealing. It's more fleshed out. He seems like a cool, chill guy. And he's probably pretty goofy.
Jed hasn't eaten his dinner yet. He said he'd be back in a few minutes. Well, I guess he can't waste a good steak.
Now, Jed was pretty easy, actually, but when it came to redesigning Kirby, that was like a whole process. As always, I'm gonna start with writing stuff about the character, a bunch of Kirby's traits. Kirby is a beagle who loves to play, and he likes to have company, and he likes food. And so, like last time, I put all the stuff I wrote to the side along with the OG design, and then I get to drawing. One problem though, I don't know how to draw a beagle. So I guess I better take a step back and learn. Basically, I just went to Google Images and searched beagle, and I drew a whole bunch of beagle photos. And this is where you get to see what being an artist is actually like. It's pain and struggle, and you're going to crank out a lot of bad drawings for every one good drawing. But after about an hour of doing this, I felt like I was starting to get the hang of it. I feel like I know now what makes a beagle look like a beagle, so I feel way more equipped to start redesigning Kirby. My first couple iterations were already feeling a lot better than before, but they still don't really feel like Kirby until I got to this one. And you could see how this version's design kept evolving as I was drawing it. At one point, I put some fire shapes in his fur coat just to really sell his energetic nature, but I felt like that was a little too on the nose, so I scrapped that. But something about this one was speaking to me. This design's very energetic and playful, and it feels kind of like Kirby. He's very cute, and Kirby was always intended to be cute, but he doesn't really feel manipulative or clever in this design. It's just a little too perfect. He looks like the hero of a Disney film and less like a character that brings comedy to a comic strip. And other than that, it's just a little generic, I feel like, and you don't want a character design to feel generic. So I went back to the source material and I read a lot more of the comics and I realized Kirby is a punk. Kirby is kind of a menace. He always gets what he wants, he's very sassy, he's always getting into trouble. So I think this design is just a little too round. If you remember when I talked about shape language, you'll remember that circles and roundness make a character design feel friendly and good-natured, which is kind of Kirby, but Kirby has this mischievous side to him, which is actually a really big part of his character. So he needs to be a little less round and a little more angular, just a tiny little bit. As I kept iterating, I played around with the proportions too. I made his legs a lot shorter and I just made him a little thicker in general. I figured if he's always hungry and he always gets whatever he wants, then I imagine he's pretty well fed. So this is what I landed on, and I'm pretty happy with this. I think he feels a lot more like a menace. I mean, I don't know about you, but like, this is the face my cat makes whenever she's about to knock something over. And then I did a whole bunch of color variations to figure out what his fur coat looks like. And then I did some final touches. I made his body a little smaller so he looks more like a puppy and less old. Long story short, here's the final design. And I'm very satisfied with this. There's still a case to be made for this other design. Like if you asked me when I was 10 years old, back when I was drawing the comic, which of these designs I liked better, I probably would have said this one. But if you ask me now, I think I prefer this one. And there you have it. Jed and Kirby 2.0. When you're designing characters that are supposed to be a duo, whether that's like best friends or a human and their pet in this case, it's always good to look at them side by side to make sure they actually belong together. In fact, many famous character duos will kind of have opposing features because that opposition makes the designs feel balanced. So for example, in this case, Jed is mostly blue with a little bit of orange, and Kirby is mostly orange with a little bit of blue. They both also have some big snoots, so that's fun.
I want to be a show dog, Jed. I'd enter a lot of dog shows and win trophies.
Good luck.
What do you mean?
You're not exactly show dog quality.
Shut up and walk me.
Now that I have my new designs, I thought it'd be fun to reboot Jed and Kirby and draw at least one more comic for old time's sake. I was racking my brain for funny ideas and whatnot, flipping through some materials in the box. And then I found this curious old book. And when I opened it up, I realized this is where I wrote down a bunch of comic ideas. And most of them weren't even used, so I consulted the ideas book, but none of them were good. So I came up with my own idea. I give you Jed and Kirby Tales, episode 1. If you want to check out the whole 5-page comic, I posted it for free on my Instagram, Webtoon, Global Comics. If people like it, maybe I'll draw more chapters and further indulge in my childhood nostalgia. Speaking of which, I even did a little Jed and Kirby animation way back in the day. Jed and Kirby Toons, Carpet Cleaners. This is so old. This is August 1st, 2011. That's almost 15 years ago.
Hey, Kirby, this carpet is so filthy.
Well, when the carpet guys asked...
I basically took like one of the ideas from my comic strip and I just stretched it out into like a full animation. Why is the audio quality so bad? Oh wait, Miggins is in this? I have to skip ahead, I can't watch this. Oh, this is so bad. Oh, this is so good. You know what? Maybe I'll make this video public. My channel is already a museum of all the phases of my life, so it won't hurt. Maybe I'll allow this to see the light of day. I really hope this doesn't send out a notification, please. Wait, maybe I won't. Maybe I won't do it. Wait, maybe I will. I don't know. I can't decide. I'm gonna do it. I hit publish. Well, if you want to see a really bad Jed and Kirby animation, go watch Jed and Kirby Toons, Carpet Cleaners, out now. As always, if you'd like to support me, join my Patreon. For $5 a month, you'll get progress updates, early access to each video, and your own on-screen credit. So go check it out. Okay, that's all for today. Tell me about the characters you came up with in your prepubescence. Thanks for watching.